Welcome back, everybody, to ABA Chapter Chat. We've got a really interesting deep dive today.
Yeah.
All about absenteeism.
Mm.
You know, it's a pretty big deal for anyone working in ABA.
It is.
And what's really cool about the sources that we're looking at for this one is that they're not just looking at like the numbers and kind of the surface level stuff. They're really getting down into, why is this even happening? And then more importantly, what can we do to make it better?
Yeah, exactly. There are some solutions out there.
Yeah.
So it can be really easy to just kind of throw our hands up and be like, well, this is just how it is in this field.
Yeah.
But, these sources really challenge that notion that we can make things better.
Yeah. And that's what we're all about here.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's back up a sec before we get into all the really nitty-gritty details. How are we even defining absenteeism in, like, the world of ABA? What does that even mean?
I think, simply put, it's when a staff member...
Whether that's, a BCBA, an RBT, anybody on the team,
right,
when they're not there, when they're scheduled to be there. And that sounds straightforward, but it can really have an impact beyond just that empty chair.
Yeah, because like in ABA, consistency is so key, right? So if you have a therapist or someone that's supposed to be working with a client that's constantly not there,
right,
it's going to mess with their routine. It's going to mess with their progress.
Absolutely. And it's not just about the amount of therapy hours that they're getting, but also that consistency and that quality of services.
Exactly. So it's a much bigger deal than it seems on the surface.
Right. And then you also have to think about the impact it has on other people, too.
Oh, yeah.
So not just the client, but the other staff who have to cover the supervisors who are juggling schedules constantly, and also the agency financially, because they're having to pay people overtime. That's a...
Yeah, it's like a domino effect impacting everyone.
Yeah. Okay, so we know it's a problem. We know it's a big deal.
Right.
But why? Why is this happening so much?
Yeah.
Especially like in these human service fields and ABA, I've always heard the argument that it's just like because the wages are so low.
Yeah. That's a common one, and it makes sense on the surface, but our sources dig a little deeper than that.
Okay.
Because there are fields where salaries are lower than ABA.
Right.
And they don't experience the same level of absenteeism.
Interesting.
Yeah, and some studies have shown that other factors like the work environment or the level of support from supervisors are even bigger influences on whether somebody shows up or not.
So it's way more nuanced than just pay people more and the problem is solved.
Yeah, it's
there's other stuff going on.
More to it.
Yeah.
Historically, a lot of direct support roles were filled by women, who might have been more likely to have family responsibilities that could lead to absences. But again, our sources are saying, let's look even beyond that.
Okay.
What's really interesting is they highlight the role of like agency culture and attitudes toward absenteeism itself.
Okay.
Like sometimes it's just kind of an unspoken acceptance of like, well, you get these sick days, so might as well use them.
Oh, yeah. It's like a benefit, not like something you should be careful with.
Exactly.
Oh, that's really interesting.
So it's not necessarily malicious. It's just like, well, I get this, so I might as well use it.
Yeah, it's part of my compensation, basically.
Right.
I'm owed this.
And that can really contribute to a culture where it just becomes like the norm.
Oh, man. Okay, so
But the good news is?
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
Okay, what's the good news?
The good news is that supervisors can't control everything, right?
Right.
Like they can't control societal norms or industry-wide salaries, but they can control how this is addressed on their own teams.
Okay. That's empowering. I like that.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit and talk about what supervisors can do.
Yeah.
Where do you even begin to tackle something like that?
Well, I think the first step is to be very clear about your expectations.
Okay.
So defining for your staff what is and is not acceptable.
Yeah, no more gray area.
Right. And this isn't just about having it written down in a policy.
Right.
But it's about making sure people actually understand what that means and communicating it effectively.
Got it. But absenteeism can look different, right?
Yes.
It's not always the same situation.
There are different types.
Okay.
Our sources talk about 3 main types.
Okay, let's hear it.
High frequency, predictable, and extended duration.
Okay, break those down for me. What does high frequency actually look like in practice?
So imagine you've got a staff member who's calling out sick, way more than everybody else.
Right.
They burn through all of their sick time, and then they continue to be absent even though they're not getting paid.
Oh, wow. So they're really committed to not being there.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Lots of unplanned absences.
Gotcha. And that's obviously the hardest to work around.
Yes, because you can't plan for it.
Yeah, you don't know when it's coming.
Uh-huh.
Okay,
Yeah.
What about predictable?
So predictable might not involve exceeding their allotted sick time.
Okay.
But there's a pattern.
Right.
So this is the person who always calls out on Fridays or Mondays.
Yep.
So they have a nice long weekend.
Yeah. Classic.
Yeah.
Extend the weekend.
Exactly. Not a legitimate use of sick time.
All right. And then extended duration.
So extended duration, this is the absences that are a week or more.
Okay.
Usually it's because of a surgery, an injury, or a serious illness.
Okay, so those are usually planned out ahead of time.
Right.
So it's not as disruptive.
Exactly.
Because you know it's coming and you can work around it.
Yeah. So while those definitely need to be managed, the real focus needs to be on high frequency and predictable.
Okay.
Because those are the ones that can really throw a wrench in things and really impact client care.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so we know how to define it. We know the different types of absenteeism.
Yep.
And we know that supervisors need to set those clear expectations.
Absolutely.
But what can they actually do? Like, what are the tools they have?
What tools do we have?
Yeah, to make this better.
Yeah, that's a great question.
What's the advice?
One that's really powerful, and I think a lot of people overlook, is promoting work enjoyment.
Oh, okay.
It sounds really simple.
Yeah.
But it can make a big difference.
So, like, if people actually like coming to work, they're less likely to want to skip out on it.
Exactly.
Okay, I get it. But how do you do that?
Right.
Especially in a field like ABA that can be really demanding and really tough.
Yeah, it's not about turning every ABA therapy session into a party.
Right.
But it is about creating an environment where people feel valued, respected, and supported.
I like that.
So thinking about recognizing achievements, celebrating things like a client reaching a milestone, or a staff member going above and beyond.
So it's kind of those same positive reinforcement strategies that we talk about all the time.
Exactly.
But applying them to the staff, too.
For staff,
I get that.
It's about fostering that culture of appreciation and creating a sense of community.
Totally.
I've even seen some agencies start implementing peer-to-peer recognition programs where staff can nominate each other for going above and beyond. And it's a really simple way.
It's like everyone gets to feel seen and appreciated by their coworkers.
Exactly.
That's awesome. Okay, what are some other things that supervisors can do?
Yeah.
Especially if they're already dealing with like a pattern of absenteeism.
One strategy that I found to be really effective is using group contingency interventions.
Okay, hold on. Group contingencies. That sounds a little...
That's a big word, but it's simpler than it sounds.
Okay, break it down for me.
Okay, so it's basically a way to use group dynamics to influence individual behavior.
Got it.
So let's say you have a team and they're struggling with unplanned absences.
Right.
The supervisor could say, okay, guys, our goal is to have 0 unplanned absences over the next 4 weeks.
So everyone's working towards the same goal.
Exactly. And here's the key. If the team meets that goal, everybody gets a reward.
Ooh, I like it.
So it could be something like an extra hour for lunch on Fridays.
Ooh, yeah.
Or a catered team lunch. Oh. The reward is something that the team chooses.
They get to pick.
They have a say in it.
Okay, so it's like a team challenge, but with positive reinforcement instead of punishment.
Exactly.
I can see how that would help people stay accountable to each other.
Peer pressure can be a powerful thing.
It can, for sure.
But it's important for the supervisor to monitor that dynamic.
Okay.
And make sure it's being used in a positive way.
Right, because you don't want it to go the other way, where people feel pressured to come to work sick.
We don't want people coming in when they're actually sick.
Yeah.
The goal is to reduce those unnecessary absences.
Got it. Okay. So what about the situations where it's not like a team-wide issue?
Yeah.
But it's like 1 or 2 individuals that are consistently absent.
Right. So that's where working one-on-one with that staff member is important.
Okay.
And this is going to be a multi-step approach.
Okay.
So the first thing is look at their attendance record and see what's going on.
Right. So just like we do with clients, we're looking at the data.
Data is key.
Yeah.
Whether it's about a client's progress or about staff performance.
Totally.
So you want to figure out, okay, is this high-frequency absenteeism?
Right.
Is it predictable?
Yeah.
Is it both?
Got it.
And then once you have that information, schedule a one-on-one meeting with that staff member.
So not like calling them out
No.
in front of everyone.
Right, in private.
A private conversation.
Exactly. And in this meeting,
Yeah.
you're going to explain to them why their absenteeism is a problem, and you're going to use concrete examples from their attendance record.
So you're not like sugarcoating it or anything. You're being straightforward with them.
This is about being really honest and transparent. And this isn't a one-time thing.
Right.
You're going to need to give them regular feedback, highlight areas for improvement, and then also when they do something good, make sure to highlight that as well.
So that good old positive reinforcement and constructive criticism.
Exactly.
Delivered in a respectful way.
Delivered respectfully and supportively.
Okay. So what if none of that is working?
Well, in some cases, disciplinary action might be necessary.
I can imagine those are hard conversations to have with people.
But it's important to remember that the goal is to support them in meeting the expectations of their role. And so that's why when you have that initial meeting, you lay out what the potential consequences are.
So they know from the start.
Yeah, so everybody's clear.
These are the rules of the game.
On the expectations. Yeah. And then one of the biggest mistakes I see is supervisors not being consistent with follow-through.
Oh, interesting.
So, they'll address it once and then kind of let it slide. But that doesn't really lead to lasting change.
Right. It's got to be...
Consistency is key.
That consistent follow-through.
Yes. Both in monitoring and in implementing consequences.
It sounds like it takes a lot of effort and dedication on the supervisor's part.
It does. But here's the thing. It's not just about enforcing rules.
Right.
It's about investing in your team and creating a work environment where people want to come to work.
Love that.
Where they feel supported and motivated to do their best.
Yeah, when people feel good, they do good work. It makes sense.
And then everybody wins. The staff, the client, the agency.
It's a win-win for everybody.
Yes.
Okay, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
Now, before we wrap up, there's one thing I'm kind of curious about.
Okay.
We've been talking about absenteeism generally. But do you think there's anything unique?
That's a great question.
About absenteeism in ABA settings?
Yes, absolutely.
So before the break, we were talking about how maybe ABA is kind of different when it comes to absenteeism.
Yeah, it's something that supervisors need to be really thinking about.
Okay.
So, for example, think about the intensity of a lot of ABA therapy sessions.
Right, especially when you're dealing with clients that have challenging behaviors.
Exactly, emotionally and physically draining.
Yeah, it can be really tough.
And so burnout is a real thing in ABA, and that can lead to absenteeism.
Yeah, because if you're feeling burnt out,
you're
probably not going to want to show up.
Yeah, you're exhausted.
Yeah.
Overwhelmed all the time.
Makes sense.
And then on top of that, ABA is such a data-driven field.
Right.
There's a lot of paperwork.
Yeah.
Progress tracking, report writing.
So much paperwork.
Yeah.
All the data sheets and the graphs.
It's a lot of extra work outside of those direct client hours.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah.
I hadn't even thought about that, but that's so true.
Yeah. So supervisors really have to be on top of that, making sure that the workload is manageable.
Right.
And that they have systems in place to support their staff so they don't feel buried.
Totally. Like, we need all that data.
Right.
But you also need to make sure people can actually get it done.
Exactly. It's all about balance. And then also you have to think about the setting. Some ABA professionals work in a clinic.
Right.
Some work in homes, which can involve a lot of travel and unpredictable schedules.
That's true. And that can be stressful.
Right?
When your schedule's all over the place.
Yeah. In addition to those core strategies that we talked about, supervisors need to think about how to adapt those to the unique demands of this field.
So you take like the general principle.
Yeah.
But you tweak it.
You tweak it.
To make it fit.
To fit the context.
Okay, I like it.
So maybe that looks like adding some mindfulness techniques to staff trainings.
That's a good idea.
Or finding ways to streamline data collection, or giving people more flexibility in their schedules when possible.
It sounds like it's really about being supportive.
Yeah.
And recognizing that this is a really demanding field.
Absolutely. And it all comes back to what we were talking about in the beginning.
Yeah.
Understanding the why. It's not about blaming anybody. It's about creating that environment where people feel supported.
Yeah.
Valued. And motivated to come to work.
Yeah.
And do their best.
Awesome. This has been such a helpful deep dive. I feel like we've learned so much.
We covered a lot.
About absenteeism, from how to even define it, the different types, and most importantly, what supervisors can do
Yes.
to create that more supportive and consistent work environment.
Yeah, I think the main takeaway here is that it's not just about enforcing policies. It's about investing in your people and creating a culture where they want to be there.
Yeah, and when they want to be there, they're going to do good work.
Exactly.
And everybody benefits.
And everybody wins.
All right, so on that note,
Yes.
we would love to hear from you, our listeners.
Yes.
What are your experiences with absenteeism in your ABA setting? What strategies have you found to be helpful? What are some challenges that you've faced?
Yeah.
Head over to our social media pages and share your thoughts with us.
We'd love to hear from you.
We always love to learn from you guys.
Absolutely.
And until next time, keep on diving deep.